The startup mindset. Let me tell you my life story, because my life story is about the startup mindset. I never thought I had the startup mindset. For me, when I was growing up, the entrepreneur, the person that had the startup mindset, well, there was just about one entrepreneur in the whole of the UK with that mindset. And you can sort of guess who he was. His first name was Richard. And the rest you can guess. And this idea of entrepreneurship the Richard Branson way was, well, A, you had to have dropped out of school. So if you didn't drop out of school, forget about you being an entrepreneur or having remotely a creative leadership mindset. And you had to have made sort of your first million by the time you were 5. So clearly that was what I was not. So instead of becoming an entrepreneur, to be honest with you, I didn't even consider entrepreneurship as an option because of the sort of myth of the magic chromosome you've got to have, which Richard Branson had. So I went and I actually became a lawyer. And I hated it. Because what I now believe in, ideally you should do something whereby who you are and what you do are the same thing. And very quickly I realized that sadly, that was very much not true for me as a lawyer, because just about the two qualities going for me, as you'll hear as I tell my story, is one, my optimism, the other, my enthusiasm. And very quickly I realized just about the two qualities you don't want from your lawyer are optimism or enthusiasm. So I left the law. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I went to visit my brother Bobby, who was working at the time in New York as an investment banker for, believe it or not, Lehman Brothers. And I went to see Bobby in New York, and I remember I got up one very jet-lagged morning looking for a cup of coffee. And back then, America was known for horrible coffee. It was so bad, even we could make fun of American coffee. So I remember going to, walking down Madison Avenue, getting to a diner, looking for a diner, the bottomless cup sort of thing. I just remember I came across this wonderful smell of coffee, and I thought, this is New York, I'm smelling coffee, I can't believe it. And I went to this place called New World Coffee, and I remember they had coffee sort of framed on the walls. I went to order my drink, and I very naively said, can I have a cappuccino, please? And they said, would you like your cappuccino with full fat milk, skim milk, semi-skim milk, soya milk? And I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe there was nothing really like, at that time, I just couldn't believe this amazing way they turned the whole coffee experience. And I just remember I just got hooked on it in New York, the way you would be if you were here. You'd be having pancakes. If you were in France, you'd be having pain au chocolat. I never thought anything of it. But I just remember I got back to London, and I was actually interviewing to become an in-house lawyer somewhere. And I remember it was the 4th of November 1995, and I was sitting with my brother Bobby and my mum in a Thai restaurant. And very casually, I said to my brother in the middle of this Thai meal, gosh, do you know what? I really miss those New York style coffee bars. I just wish we had them here. It's such a pity we haven't got those New York style coffee bars where I could start every morning having a lovely skinny cappuccino. And as soon as I said this, my brother got the old light bulb. You hear about entrepreneurs getting light bulbs. My brother got light bulb. He said, I can't believe you've said this. There's a company called Starbucks. And I was like, what the hell, Starbucks? He's like, well, Starbucks is a coffee company in Seattle. They say it's going to grow outside Seattle, eventually outside America. And this is it. Now that you've said it, you and I should be the ones to bring American-style coffee bars to the UK. This is a brilliant business idea. And my reaction in this Thai restaurant was, hang on a minute, Bobby. I think you got me completely wrong. I meant, why didn't someone else open it and for me to go to it? I couldn't quite understand why, as a consumer, I had to provide a solution to my own problem. Like, other people open coffee bars and I'd happily go to them. And to be honest with you, I was quite insulted that I had to leave my hard-earned career as a lawyer to open a coffee bar. So I was having none of it, but then again, so was my brother. So there was a bit of an impasse there. And he said, well, what if I paid you to do some research for me? Because I think this is a great idea. If you don't want to do it, 1 week's research is all I want from you. Being a good lawyer, I sort of calculated a quick hourly rate for myself, and I actually got a check to my brother there and then at dinner, and I went and did research for him. One day, all I did was I bought myself a 1-day pass on the London Underground. I got on what we call the Circle line. That's a circle on the London Underground, 27 stops. Market research was I got off at every single of the 27 stops that day, and I saw there was nothing like what I'd seen in New York. You had the old style greasy spoon sandwich bars, there was nothing. There was nothing like those wonderful coffee bars I'd seen in New York. And that night I got home, 27 of these sort of stops I got off pretending to be the customer. And there I was like, well, I suppose this is what people call a gap in the market. I have seen a gap in the market. And we decided to go for it. We had no idea. And I remember my head was full of if it was so amazing, how come no one else has done it? You know, what do I know just because I like a skinny cappuccino? Does that mean this is a great business idea? But a lot of it is you press delete on your doubts and you go for it. And we both decided to leave the law and banking, respectively, and enter into this world of coffee, into a world we were completely clueless about. We were clueless about coffee, retail, catering. None of our friends had even ever opened a restaurant. We didn't know anything about coffee. We didn't even know anyone who had started their own business. But what I didn't realize that actually us being clueless was actually our biggest advantage. Because being an outsider gives you an enormous advantage because all you see is your opportunities. Your mind is not contaminated by what you don't know. So at this point, both of us, we moved back home, which was a bit of a shock, and we just really immersed ourselves. I remember we almost killed ourselves. We went to some coffee tasting thing, and we each ended up having 26 espressos one morning just to learn about different kinds of coffee. But it was real immersion. And then I remember I went back to New York and I took these clandestine pictures of the coffee bar to make myself an album. And so we did a lot of what entrepreneurs call bootstrapping to get this idea together. And then we wrote a business plan, and then we opened the door to the first coffee bar in the UK. 1 year after we'd had the conversation in Thai restaurant. Everyone thinks, well, coffee bars are huge in the UK now, they're huge everywhere. But sort of a recent statistic I read is by 2020, we're going to have 21,000 coffee bars. So everyone thought, well, they were a great brand. Surely this must be an overnight success. Well, my motto in life is it actually takes 15 years to become an overnight success. People somehow forget about the 15 years of hard slog that went into it. We opened the doors and no one came in. When I say no one came in, our break-even sales were £700, but every single day for the first 6 months, we were making only £200 of sales a day. And when I say £200 of sales a day, I'm discounting my mum, who's coming in drinking as many cappuccinos as humanly possible. So without my mum's excessive coffee consumption. But anyway, we didn't give up. We believed in it as customers. We wanted skinny cappuccinos for ourselves. So we grew this company. I remember the following year, we opened one more store. And I actually remember when we had 2 stores, I remember thinking, wow, it's so exciting. We're like a big chain now. Which one do I go to? Then we went up to 7. Then we went up to 30, 60, 80. Huge phase of growth over 5 years. But when we got to 110 stores, we felt, gosh, the entrepreneurial phase is over. We're a big company. We have thousands of employees, 110 stores, a great brand. So we thought, well, as entrepreneurs, we're not needed anymore. And so both Bobby and I left the company. April 2001, we sold our shares. We were on the main stock exchange, valued at 50 million. And we thought, great, this is a dream. We'll sell off, we'll never have to work again. And it was the very next day after I sold that I realized what a terrible mistake I made. Because number one, on a personal level, I loved what I did every day. That dream I had when I was a lawyer of being who I am. Work was like fun for me. So what was I doing leaving work? But the other mistake we made was we thought the startup phase was over. We thought when a company goes big, you lose the startup status, that sort of you grow out of being a startup. But the mistake we made is we didn't realize that actually being a startup was a phase we had to hold on to very, very tightly. And that's what I want to talk to you about. And that's what I learned really, is that we thought, very much a company starts up with the empathy. Only startups have empathy, passion, soul, curiosity. Then you move along the graph to be big. But I think in this day and age that we live in, the crosswinds of disruption, changing consumer behaviors are so huge, the pace of change is so huge that all of us have to think like a startup. And I've actually summed the startup mentality that everyone needs in professional services, in any business, B2B, B2C, whatever you're in, you need to think much more like an entrepreneur. And I've just summed this up into 6 habits I'm going to share with you. The first habit, being your own customer. I never realized that was the best place to start a business. When you become big, you think, yeah, I love my customers, but no, you actually are treating them like aliens. They're like, sort of, you treat them with data as if they're not real people. And it's going back to empathy. Empathy is the key word, what we need with customers. It's the human side. You step into their shoes, because the external world of your customer is changing so much that empathy is the only thing you need, because ideas, innovation comes from empathy much more than it comes from hard data. If you nurture empathy, you're going to be a real winner in this world we're entering. And another quote, which I'm going to share, is this Amazon. People are obsessed with disruption, but disruption in a way is a myth. For Amazon, disruption is a side effect of empathy, of delighting customers. But you're not going to delight your customers in the office. So very much being aware of being too busy. Big companies, successful organizations are too busy. They sit there in that office with that dead cheese plant trying to be creative. Whereas the customers on the outside, their external world is transformed on its axis, and you're sitting in the office thinking of being innovative, it's never going to happen. The third habit I've got, importance of being clueless. We were clueless. We thought our cluelessness was our disadvantage. In fact, it was our biggest advantage. Now, the opposite of cluelessness. Tell me if any of these phrases are familiar to you. Familiar? It's what I call the expert trap. In a way, you just get so stuck by what you know. And being an expert nowadays, the pace of change is such that you can only be an expert of the past. You're not an expert of the future. So it's about bringing back curiosity. Instead of creativity, it's about curiosity. When you're out of your comfort zone, you become curious. You ask the naive questions. And that's becoming really important. Why do we do it that way? Why can we not do things a different way? But when you've got that curious mind, it's about bootstrapping. Bootstrapping really is extreme resourcefulness. It's about experimentation. Entrepreneurs often don't have resources. We don't have set ways of doing things. So all we've got is experimentation, trying things out, trying small things out the whole time, trial and error. And the enemy of that is perfectionism. Perfectionism exists in big companies, and you need to put that away and go back to a culture of experimentation, or what us entrepreneurs call anything worth doing is worth doing badly, and not being ashamed of it. But once you start to experiment, notching up on no's is my other habit. That's all about the fear of rejection, the fear of failure. That fear is paralyzing, and you need to remove that in organizations. Organizations with huge reputations have this enormous fear of failure, but it's just about changing it, removing the fear, and realizing the only way to avoid failure is to do nothing. That's the only way you'll ever avoid failure. And now failure and innovation go hand in hand. You can't have innovation without failure, without making mistakes, without trial and error. And my last habit is taking 100% of yourself to work. When I was a lawyer, we couldn't do that. Now all of us need this, bring all of ourselves, the human element. We've lost the human element in business. It's about bringing your head, heart, and personality to work. And it's fun. That's the great news about it. Not being an automaton, being 100% yourself is fun. And I genuinely believe these are my 6 habits for a startup mindset. Yes, we live in a crazy world of change. The challenges are absolutely huge. But my God, so are the opportunities. And take it from me, that entrepreneurial mindset, those resourcefulness, agility, curiosity, experimentation tools, we all have it within us. They might be dormant, but they're there, ready to be activated. That's my story. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The College of Knowledge. Tomorrow Conversations.